I would like to start with my name. You may have noticed that my name is Caridad Lee Brown. And I would say that that name encompasses all three of my cultural heritage. Caridad is a very Cuban name. You don't find it very often outside of people who are not from Cuba. And so when I was born, that's the name that uh, my godmother uh, gave me. And Lee is my Chinese last name. And then I married into an American person. Uh, and that's how I came up with the last name Brown. Most of my um, English speaking friends know me by the name of Carrie. Carrie came uh, into play when I was in school in Cuba, and I was lucky to go to a bilingual school and also had one class of English. And if any of you guys have ever taken any uh, language classes, the teacher would give you a name for that language. And that's how Carrie came about. So when I came to this country, most of the English speaking world could not pronounce my name. And I try my hardest to teach people how to pronounce my name, and they couldn't. And I hate to have my name mispronounced. So I just go by Carrie for a lot of for that reason. As you can see on camera, I am visibly Asian, and I was born in Cuba, and my parents are both Chinese. There's a huge Chinese and Japanese influence in the Latino countries, and the history of that goes back to the 1800s, when in the United States there was something called the Chinese Exclusion Act, and that included other Asian countries like the Japanese. But because of the name Chinese, what it says is that back in the mid 1800s, the Chinese were not allowed to enter the United States. And so many of the Chinese immigrants migrated to Central America and South America. And that's where my dad ended up. That's how he ended up in Cuba. My mom came to Cuba in 1949 after the Chinese Communist Revolution. And uh, I was born in Cuba. So luckily, I grew up in a bicultural uh, environment. At home, I spoke Cantonese. Outside the home, I spoke Spanish. Uh, After the Cultural Revolution, I came to the United States um, with a Peter Pan uh, flights. In Spanish, they're called the Pedro Pan, and it started in they all the children came by themselves, not unlike the children who have come to this country from other countries such as Mexico, uh, Guatemala, Cuba, uh, in recent years. So it's not a new phenomenon. It has happened many, many times with immigrant and refugee communities. So when I came to this country, I came as a refugee. I lived in an orphanage for about 3 years, and then I grew up in Michigan. Another thing that is a little bit unusual about me and my family is that, like I said, I have a godmother who named me Caridad, and I am the only person in my family who's Catholic, and I would say that I'm one of the uh, progressive Catholics in uh, in Kaiser, because I grew up in that kind of a Catholic milieu, you know. when I came to Oregon, it was in about oh, not about, it was in 1988. And I was really shocked to find myself in a not very diverse city, which is Salem. In Michigan, there's a history of the Mexican migrant stream. They would come up from Tejas, from Texas, and Florida. And for many, many years, they would eventually end up in Michigan. And so there's uh, a long history of migrants that settled in Michigan, and there was a big Black community, Arab community. I could find just about anything I wanted to in Michigan. So when I came to Salem, I was really shocked that I could not find that same diverse community. Um, One of the reasons why I was able to uh, have such success with commuting with the Latino community here is because I started as a high schooler in Michigan, going to migrant camps. And so that was my introduction to being amongst uh, the Mexican community in Michigan. And I bet you weren't around.
Mm,
You're not that old, but I
mm.
participated in the big great boycott with Cesar
Oh,
Chavez.
wow.
Yeah. So, I know the history and the struggles of the Mexican American community. I lived in Salem for a while near Bush Park, and then when I got married, then I moved to Kaiser, and um, so I know that no matter what I did, I would always look for Spanish speaking people in Salem because I missed uh, talking in Spanish to people, of that culture. And actually, uh, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of code switching. Okay, um, but uh, I came to realize that I did a lot of that until I learned of the uh, terminology of code switching. So I also have a Chinese name, which is Li Choi Mei. So when I am with my Chinese family, I answer to a different name. I don't answer to Carrie. I don't answer to Caridad. I answer to Ameya. And when I am with my Cuban friends, I start talking like a Cubana. And when I am with my Mexican friends, uh, I I adapt. I adapt and adopt a different intonation. And code switching has to do with language acquisition and how you use it amongst your friends and family. And I can navigate from one culture to another using the adaptability of code switching. In fact, I have met during my travels several people of Cuban uh, descent, and they don't know that I'm Cuban because by looking at me, they don't know that. And as soon as they find out that I am Cubana, they start talking like Cubans. And what's interesting is that as a Cuban American refugee, I have been back to Cuba 3 times. And since the Castro Revolution, uh, a lot of the Chinese left uh, left Cuba. So there are not a lot of Chinese left in Cuba. I
Mm.
went to Chinatown and I barely saw any Chinese people there. And when I was in Cuba, I would start talking to the people there, and they were amazed that I could speak Spanish. And so I had to educate my Guanos about the history of the Chinese in Cuba. So that was lost. Well, how do I keep that heritage going? Well, when my mom was alive, I definitely kept uh, the language part going locally. And then when I was in Michigan, I was able to bring my sister and her family over from China. So there is my family is really interesting because I have part of my family which is Chinese, and they speak Cantonese. Then I have another part of my family, my brother, who married a half Cuban and half Chinese person, and that part of my family hardly speaks, probably no Chinese. They speak Spanish. And if we were to have a family reunion, it would be really interesting because one part of my family doesn't know the other part of the family. And I try to connect with my Chinese family via visits, uh, mostly visits, and with my Cuban and Latino heritage. Like I said, I have known uh, many Cuban Americans and Mexican Americans from Michigan. Michigan had a large Mexican American population, and same with Cuban Americans. And so I've kept in touch with them. I That is probably one of the things that uh, I treasure is that relationships. Yeah, I am from Michigan, and Michigan had a longer history of they back then they used to call it bilingual education, and uh, in Michigan they started to hire bilingual counselors and bilingual bicultural administrators and teachers. So I came from a school district where that was already in operation. It wasn't an easy going thing, because you are trying to get into an established system that did not include bilingual and biculturalism. So when I came to Salem, I first got hired as a newcomer teacher at Waldo. That's where it was located, and it was wonderful because everybody in that community was Hispanic and uh, and spoke and spoke Spanish. So I felt very much at home. Then, like you said, they opened up a newcomer center at McNary. So this is all new for Salem-Keizer and for Keizer, Oregon, which is very white. And mi amiga Joy knows that. And you probably know that too, to a certain extent. And so I started out at McNary as a newcomer teacher. Then I was hired as the migrant resource teacher, and I was still based in McNary. But I also believe that uh, staff, bilingual staff, multicultural staff people need to be seen and staffed in different uh, areas of the educational community. And so when a council position became open, I applied for that. And I already had experience back in Michigan doing that. So when I applied for that position, um, it was tough because there was an entrenched community in Salem that wanted to hire their own. And I think that happens in every uh, situation, not just in in education. And I remember that there was a portion of the people that wanted to hire somebody that they already knew because they felt comfortable with somebody that they knew. And then there was a couple of administrators who believed in moving forward and accepting bicultural and bilingual people, and so they chose me. It was difficult because I from the beginning, I tried to kind of push my agenda, and it did not go very well. There was a lot of pushback back then. There was an old uh, generation of people that worked at McNary, and they did not accept the idea that there were all these Hispanic kids coming to McNary High School. And now we have this newcomer center, and now we have this person that supposedly is going to serve that community. And I remember I did not feel welcome and accepted. And when you are the only one anywhere, uh, it, the feeling of isolation is really, it's really bad. And by then I was married, and I would come home and almost cry and share my frustrations with my husband. And he would say, just give it time, they will love you eventually. And I think that I had similar experience back in Michigan. So I kind of had that experience to draw back on. It's like, yeah, it's true. Once they get to know me, especially the kids, it was hard for the old uh, staff people, I just had to wait until they retired and new idea was to come along. But I think that once kids found out who I was, that's when they started to reach out to me and talk to me. And that's what you were referring to, that I became the de facto uh, Hispanic counselor for kids. And that sometimes there were these uh, classes or events that were announced to everybody, and you know what it means when there is an announcement and an invitation for whatever. If you make uh, if you make those announcements, most of the underrepresented kids will not uh, answer to some of those announcements or invitations. And I remember exactly uh, what it did to a lot of the underrepresented kids when there were scholarships being offered, AP classes being offered. There were certain criteria and standards to be admitted to the AP classes. And if you didn't fit those criteria, you did not participate. And so I made it a point to look for those kinds of kids who had potential but did not, but were missed by the selection process. And so what I did is that I would seek those kids out and say, okay, and then I would approach the teachers, and this is where relationships really matter. You can be pushy, you can be aggressive, you can be assertive, but I found out that a lot of those things don't work. So you have to uh, advocate for kids, but you also have to have allies. So I think that in my work, I have learned that you have to use softer tones, uh, and you gotta bring people to what you believe in, and many times that worked. That doesn't work if you don't have an administration that believes in in your philosophy and the goals. So I think it's important because it's a way to educate the public, and because they're not getting this type of education and awareness in the schools. So if we don't do it um, in the community, then people will not be educated about the fact that being a Latino is not just indigenous, and there's a variety of Latinos out there. And I believe that you need bilingual, bicultural, multicultural teachers in all areas of the school system. You need multicultural, bicultural teachers in those settings because that's what so the majority students will see a different uh, role model there. Otherwise, they will say, "Oh, okay, so a bilingual, bicultural teacher only is good enough to teach in an ESL classroom or in a bilingual classroom." No, you have very experienced and teachers that can teach math. You have teachers that can teach science. And that's where I think the educational system here in Salem-Keizer has missed the opportunity to diversify uh, who they hire and where to put them. Because when I have brought that up to some of my former colleagues, I say, what is the composition of your staff? Oh, we have a lot of Hispanic staff members, uh, but where are they placed? They are the instructional assistants. They are in office uh, positions, and I'm not saying that those are not important positions, but you need to place bicultural people, teachers in all areas. And we've had some success, some uh, in administrators. But if you look across the district, uh, you will see some, and it's hit or miss. uh, the people who've been here forever and ever and who have been established and have a voice and they're social economically at the top, they will look down on newcomers. And and that happens. Uh, and sadly, it happens among the Latino community. It happens in the Asian community. It happens with the Black community. It's just sad. I think that what I have learned from living among different cultural groups is that you have to become allies. Um, and I know that different Asian and Hispanic groups don't work well together. And I believe that we should uh, just help each other out. And when there are issues, we need to be there together, side by side. And that's how I have learned to adapt. It's like I think that when you're young, you don't see those kinds of things until you start to live amongst groups.
Yeah, no.